What is going on, guys? It is a fine, super fine day here in Southwest PA, and in today's video we are going to be talking about how to take your brand new motorcycle home for the very first time. So let's just say, for sake of argument, you're like me, you never rode a motorcycle before, you took your MSF course, you got a brand new bike, you went to your favorite motorsports shop, and you bought your bike. But you have to get this thing home. Now, some people trailer them home, which is not a bad option. If you don't have a trailer, it can probably get expensive, and there be a lot of stuff involved. But let's say, for sake of argument, that you are going to tough it out and you are going to take your motorcycle home for the first time, for its first maiden voyage. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about today. These are things that I did personally as I prepped and I got everything ready mentally and everything like that, so I could successfully get my motorcycle home. Now I'm going to go and get gas, and then I will be right back. Alright guys, we are back, and we are going to continue to talk about how to get your bike home if this is your first time really riding a bike. I mean, you might be in the position where you just took your MSF course and you never really rode motorcycles or anything like that, maybe nothing with a clutch, so you might need to get a little bit of advice or tips, and this is just kind of what I did. So the very first thing that I did, whenever everything was set and dry, I signed the paperwork. This thing is mine. You, financial burden, you. No, I'm kidding. I love you. You're not a financial burden. But the first thing that I did was, when I sat on my bike, I got used to the weight. I sat up and I kind of bounced the bike around to try and get a feel for the weight. Because honestly, that's like a big thing. You don't really think that it might be a big thing, but it's kind of a big thing, because you might be watching all these videos on YouTube and you haven't been on a bike yet, and then when you actually sit on a motorcycle, you're like, whoa, this actually got a little bit of weight to it. It's like, well, duh, but you might not be expecting that. So that's what I did. I sat on the bike, I got used to the weight, and I got very familiar with all my controls. While most motorcycles are like all set up the same, some are a little bit different. But that's what I did. I got used to where everything was at. The second thing that I did was I took advantage of the big parking lot that my dealership, Mercedes Motorsports, has. So with that, I just kind of pissed around in the parking lot for a little bit. I figured out where my friction zone is at. A lot of bikes, they're all different, and you can even change where that pull is. So I got used to where my friction zone was at, was getting used to the weight, used to the brakes, doing slow speed maneuvers, starts and stops, and a little bit of shifting. And I just kind of pissed around with that for, I don't know, 15-20 minutes. And after that, for me anyways, the anxiety kind of kicked in, which was like, okay, now I gotta get this thing home. So what I did way before I even got the bike is I set up my route. So obviously I know where I live and I know where the dealership's at, so A to B, right? Well, sometimes it might not be all that simple. And you don't necessarily want to take the fastest way home. You want to take the most comfortable way home. For me, Mercedes sits right off a pretty busy road, Route 30, and I did not feel comfortable going 60 mile an hour, 65 mile an hour, whatever it is, on my bike that quickly. Now, there really was no way to get around that. I had to get on it for a little bit, but whenever I was planning my route, either Google Earth or just Google Maps, I figured out a nice way to get home. A lot of back roads, I have a lot of twisties, I have a lot of hills, so all of those things I had to keep in mind. The next thing that I did with my situation is, once I got a route planned out, I drove that route with my car. I would drive that route several times, and I would pick up things that might be an issue. So maybe, you know, I'm riding down the road and there was there's a really sharp blind turn. I'd stick that in my memory bank and be like, okay, remember, up here, this is what we got to deal with. And I did that for the whole trip. And I would keep riding that trip just to really familiarize myself with that, because as a brand new rider, I didn't want any surprises. I didn't want any surprise corners. I like to know exactly what is going on at all times. That's just kind of how I operate. I'm not a big surprise guy. I don't really like surprises. You gotta learn how to deal with them, but that's besides the point. So with me, I would just keep riding that ride all the time, picking up mental notes. It's like, because this was one of them, it's like, okay, what about these black little tar snakes, or whatever you call them? While they're not a big deal to me, I didn't necessarily know if they would or wouldn't be, you know. So that was another thing. I'm just picking up obstacles that I know that would be in my way. So once I got my route down and I was really familiar with it, I made one more run right in the morning, or, you know, like right before I was about to get my bike, just in case there was a big thing of salt. I bought my bike in February, so there's still, like, you know, salt patches and stuff. So I'm like, I rode the route one more time, make sure there wasn't any salt on the road, any weird obstacles. We're good to go. So I buy the bike, I sit on the bike, I'm like, what the hell did I just do? You are stupid. That was actually kind of my first thought, but that was just because I was just kind of like overwhelmed with, oh, I actually had a goal and completed it, which is not necessarily weird, but it's a pretty big deal sometimes. So again, after I would do all that, I'd get familiar with where I was at in the parking lot. I did all those things that I already mentioned. The slow speed stops, get used to the brakes, just get used to the motorcycle in general. And it comes to a point, just like studying an exam, or at least this is how it is for me, there gets to a point where you just have to do it, because the longer you don't do it, you're just going to get inside your head, or at least I do anyways, and you can start to psych yourself out. And you definitely don't want to psych yourself out, but you got to get it done. So after I figured it out, I'm like, all right, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do it. There was nothing to it but to do it. And my first ride wasn't bad. It was cold. I was very cold, and I was also super nervous. So, you know, when you're riding a bike, you want to be loosey-goosey, right? Your elbows are bent, your legs are tucked into the gas tank, but you're real loose. I was like white knuckling everything, you know, standing straight up, and I was nervous. But just try and remember to try and be a little bit relaxed, because that'll just help you with reaction and all that. The other thing that I did whenever I bought mine is I actually kind of set it up so traffic wouldn't be all that crazy. I live right on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, so it gets super busy. So whenever I set up my time to actually pick up the motorcycle, I set it up at a time, it was like 12 or 1 p.m. Just because I knew that wasn't a very busy time, because I didn't want to be in a lot of traffic, and I also didn't want the extra stress of dealing with impatient drivers behind me. So that's why I did mine, because whenever you're taking your bike home for the very first time, it's an experience, especially if you've never ridden a motorcycle really before, because again, in my situation, I didn't grow up on dirt bikes or clutches or anything like that. The only motorcycle experience I had was my MSF course, and that was the summer before, so I had a whole winter into February, excuse me, where I was actually on a bike again. So that was like 5 or 6 months, whatever it was. So I just really wanted to take my time, and that's where I was getting at with that spiel. Just take your time. Slow down. If the speed limit is 25 and you're doing 20, it doesn't matter. Who cares? You have to get home safe. So you got to do what you got to do to get yourself home safe. Now that might not be for everybody. Some people obviously could live much further away from their dealership or wherever to their home. Me, I'm pretty lucky. Mine's about 20-25 minutes away, and this is actually the route that I went whenever I took my bike home. But some people don't have that luxury. Some people probably could live a lot further away, or they could live in areas where they have to jump on the interstate. Like, there's no and ifs or buts about it. They have to jump on the interstate for 15-20 minutes. And if that was me, I would have still done it, but I wouldn't have been happy about it. It didn't take me very long to actually get up to speed on the bike. It took me a couple days, but to start out fresh, brand new, and like you're on a brand new bike, you know, for sake of argument, you just bought a brand new motorcycle as your first motorcycle, there's gonna be a lot of extra stress, man. And if you got to ride on the interstates like that could very well be an issue. So if that is an issue, figure out how you can get it taken home. Either have a buddy ride it home for you, or get it trailered home, whatever you gotta do. I'm sure there's even dealerships for a fee would transfer the bike to your house for you. You have options. There's a bunch of options, but at the end of the day, you just don't want to put yourself in a position where you're going to wreck your bike because you're uncomfortable, or you're insecure with your skills, or your just mental ability, or your mental state at the time, because there's a lot of new stuff going on, right? You're on a brand new bike, you just put a bunch of money down, you got a payment, now you're flying through the air at 48 mile an hour on a motorcycle. Never done it before. So there's a lot to consider. But you know, I don't want to make the video too long, but that's how I did mine. You know, I obviously know where I live and I know where the dealership's at. I found the best route that I could ride. I picked the best time of day with less traffic, and also I drove that route several times just so I know the route, I know the layout of the road. And this being my first drive home, or actually on the bike, wasn't too bad. As you can see, I got some twisties up here. Further on down the road, the video will probably end way before that, but there's like a really sharp increasing radius or decreasing radius downhill turn that was like one of the, you know, red flags for me. I'm like, okay, you got this one here. And you know, that kind of also plays into, you know, before you get your bike, when you're driving regularly and you're driving the roads in your area, think about, hey, I'm going to be on this road on a motorcycle, so maybe there's a road like, hey, you know, I gotta be aware of this, or I gotta be aware of that, and I'll look at this turn, this might cause some issue. So that's, you know, let's keep that in the back of my head. This right here was one of the ones that I had in the back of my head. See, 10 mile an hour sharp turn, so I was mentally prepared for this turn too. And I took it pretty easy. I didn't stall it or anything like that. No traffic, so I didn't have that extra stress. But you know, that's just kind of what I did, guys, and I hope that this helps. If it did help, you know, let me know, and let me know how you got your first motorcycle home, because everybody's got a story, everybody does things different. This is just how I did mine, and I thought it was worth mentioning, because if I did it, I'm sure that there are other people who are going to be being in the same position as I was. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna let you guys go. Again, let me know what you think of the video. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe if this helped you in any way, shape, or form. That helps me help you by knowing that I'm on the right track, or I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Spring's coming. Today is the Super Bowl against Taylor Swift and the... Well, who's playing? Taylor Swift and the 49ers? I can't remember. I'm specifically not watching the Super Bowl because I know that Taylor Swift is just going to be blowing up, which I don't necessarily have a problem with Taylor Swift, but I don't know. It just is what it is. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. I'm rambling. I will see you guys in the next one.